Hey guys, it's Woody the Unexceptional Gamer, and I want to tell you the story of Fredrick Taylor. Um, I found him interesting back when I was in college, and he did a lot of good and a lot of bad for the world, but there's no doubt that he left his fingerprint on it. So I thought I'd share with you what he did, what the science of management was like, and the kind of thing that you learn in business school. So if this is a career that you're considering managing people, you'll learn at least what the school experience will be like. So anyway, let's talk. This is Fredrick Taylor. He was born in Pennsylvania. He's an American in the mid 1800s. So, he hit the working force in sort of the late 1800s. And he changed the way that employees work forever, for better and for worse. So, let's talk. Before Fredrick Taylor, everything was just kind of handled as a craftsman, right? And even laborer jobs had a certain amount of, creativity and individuality to them. And he had a philosophy that there was one way to do it. That was like a really big deal with him. There's one best way. That's how he phrased it. And anything else but this best way was the wrong way. That's how he managed. And he could back up his assertions with science. And before that, people didn't really back up their assertions with science. They just did work. You can imagine an old horseshoer, or you can imagine a guy who build furniture or something like that as something of a craftsman, whereas he changed things up so that they went from this like craftsman approach, nice nade Woody, to I guess instruments of his management instead of individuals who did work. So let's bring our first example in there, the shovel, right? Before Taylor came along, workers had responsibility to bring their own tools to the job. And, they in this case, it was coal. And some people would bring big shovels. Some people would bring little shovels. They all sort of brought stuff that was tailored to, what fit them best. But he had this idea that there was one right way to do it. So what he did is he measured it and he tested it and decided that a 21 pound load was the ultimate for shoveling coal. And then he went from everybody's shovels, maybe little shovels for little people, big shovels for big people, and replaced them. Now, instead of them bringing their own tools to the job, the employer provided them to get maximum productivity out of the staff. And now every employee used the same shovel, and every employee could be expected to produce the same productivity. And this doesn't seem like a bad thing, but if you watch the pattern in here, you'll see it for what it is. Sorry about the phone. It is not some sort of altruistic thing where he's trying to get people to be more productive or help them or provide their tools. Everything is designed to turn people into machines. So I'm not an expert in making steel or iron, but this is pig iron. Apparently it's an intermediate step that you get between when you first get the dirty iron stuff out of the ground to eventually producing some sort of good usable iron that you can make stuff with. It's pig iron, and it needs to be moved around. His philosophy was this, that if workers were currently moving 12.5 tons of pig iron a day, you could give them incentives so that they would move 47.5 tons a day, right? So about quadruple. And he says, left to their own wits, they would probably become exhausted after a few hours and fail to reach their goal. But what he did instead is he did these time studies. So he would watch how long it took to do things, sit there with the stopwatch as they did their job, and determine how long each part should take. In addition to that, he started giving them breaks. So his notion was that people are stupid and that they would never take breaks, they would never recharge. Instead, they would just sort of work themselves to slow down and eventually fail. He invented the coffee break. He figured out that if you give some guy, tell him to work and work and work, and he never stops, then he'll wear out. He'll wear out and he'll slow down. But he had them work 2 hours, take a 15-minute break. Work 2 hours, take a lunch break. Work 2 hours, take an afternoon break, and then work 2 hours and finish their day. What he discovered was that this schedule, this sort of regimented work rest thing, was a way to get more out of people than having them either just work themselves weary or figure out their own break schedule. He had this idea that there was one right way to do it, and this was it. He once testified in front of Congress in the U.S., that's like our government, and he said this: I can say, without the slightest hesitation, that the science of handling pig iron is so great that the man who is physically able to handle pig iron and is sufficiently phlegmatic and stupid to choose this for his occupation is rarely able to comprehend the science of handling pig iron. I had to look up phlegmatic. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But apparently it means like dull, being unemotional and solidly calm, right? So you can picture, like, what he's saying is anyone who would handle pig iron as an occupation is so dull, is so stupid, that they need to be told how to handle pig iron by someone enlightened and bright like himself. I found this guy fascinating, right? There's a part of me that wants to hang him from the highest rafter and say, dude, you are such a douchebag. You are so horrible. You are just working people to their death, taking away any kind of satisfaction that they might have possibly had, and wringing every last ounce of productivity out of him. But there's another part of me that thinks, you're kind of right. You're like, it might be that people who handle pig iron for a living either A, don't have the background to fully consider the best and most efficient way to do it. Like he said, right? If you're digging ditches for a living, you might benefit from supervision. The other side of it is this. There were workers who were intentionally being unproductive. Right? That's how they rolled. For example, there was this notion amongst people who soldered, that like a sort of electronics welding. Soldered? I always pronounce that wrong. Anyway, the people who did that, they would do it slow. They would do it slowly on purpose because they had this idea that the more efficient the worker was, the fewer jobs there would be. That if everybody did the work of 1/4 of a person, then they would have to hire 4 people to get their job done. And, like I said, like that kind of attitude is what made guys like Fredrick Taylor so successful. He was able to measure these guys and wring more work out of them by telling them exactly how to do their job because they weren't doing their job the way that they were supposed to. It's almost like from the employee's perspective, the ideal work environment is one that has some sort of satisfaction and creativity involved. Like that would be what people like doing. Take for example, someone who makes furniture, right? There's 2 ways to do this. You can either have artists, craftsmen, who put this stuff together and make the most of it, or you can break it down into very simple tasks and say, your job is cutting 16-inch boards, your job is cutting 32-inch boards, my job is gluing 16 and 32-inch boards together, and that just becomes the whole gig. That's it. The assembly line technique is more productive, but it's a horrible life to live. Ford was largely credited, the guy who invented that car company, was largely credited with inventing the assembly line. And he would say, I pay people better than these other jobs. And he did, but he didn't do it because he was a, kind, gentle man who wanted people to live lives of wealth. He did it because the jobs were so horrible that people hated them. And they had to be paid more to work on an assembly line than they were willing to accept for working a more pleasurable job. Something that involves your head and feelings of satisfaction. If you want one guy to screw the same screw on the same car all day long, 8 hours a day, you're kind of not just trading dollars for hours, but you're trading dollars for soul. And you're subjecting a guy to a really unpleasant work experience, but you're paying him extra because that's what it takes to get him to accept it. So anyway, Fredrick W. Taylor was the first guy to stand over people with a stopwatch, determine how long something should take, and start to measure them based on whether or not they were able to get that job done as quickly as the best in class. He initiated stack ranking of people. He initiated, employee productivity drives. And he also sort of initiated, changing the way that people work so that there was just one best way and they had to conform to the way that other people wanted them to do it. Without him, the Industrial Revolution would not have happened the way that it did. Without him, you wouldn't be enjoying reliable, reproducible iPhones every day. But without him, you know, people might be living simpler, more enjoyable, more satisfying lives. So, yeah, this is the kind of thing that you learn in business school. And I thought you guys would find it interesting. You know, if this is a career that you're looking forward to, they're going to teach you how to be like Fredrick W. and measure people and get productivity out of them. And while they're at it, you know, you can figure out how to apply that knowledge and become the best leader that you know how to be. Thought you might enjoy the commentary. So I'm curious what side you fall on. Is this guy good? Is this guy bad? I don't know. If you like the commentary, subscribe in the top right, see more thoughts from me. On the left, I talk about the new PS4 controller that I have pictures of it coming up in the video. And on the right, it's Mail Monday. So check that out and have a good day.